When we start studying history, the first thing that is coming into our mind is dates. For long, historians have been debating about dates, particularly when a ruler was crowned and when a particular battle was fought. So these dates were debated. Here, one thing we can see is history is read along with dates, or it is synonymous with dates. Many of us, or even you must have heard others say, the subject history is very boring because I have to remember a lot of dates. Is it really true? To an extent, it might be, and it is not at the same time. Why it might be is history is nothing about reading about or writing about changes that occur over time. So you should know what happened in the past and how things got changed over a period of time. So here, we are looking at some things which happened in the past and those were changing over time. So you are comparing what was before and what is now or after. And also, in our day-to-day life, we mostly take things for granted. We hardly ask historical questions about things that are around us. So whatever we see, we think they are here for long as it is now. But sometimes we may get curious and we might ask questions that are actually historical. That is, about the past of certain things. For example, you will be sipping a cup of tea at home or in a roadside tea shop or in a hotel. Did you know when actually people started to drink tea in India? When you travel in a train over a long distance, either to your native place or to a distant place in India, have you ever wondered when the railways came to India and also what people did before train came to India, that is to travel for a long distance, how people actually traveled. And next is newspaper. Nowadays we must be reading either in a mobile phone or even on television. Before that, newspaper was there. And what about before that? That is before newspapers were printed and before newspapers were available. How did people knew about news? So in all these examples, we can see just only one thing which is very important, that is nothing but time. And also here, time doesn't mean a particular date or a particular year or a month. And also at the same time, you can't fix a particular date or a time for a process that happened over a period of time. For example, we saw about tea. We can't say people started to drink tea from a single date because tea came through the British people. They brought it here and in the beginning they were only drinking it. Then later our Indian ancestors started to drink it. Then, step by step, it started to spread, and now we are all drinking it. So we can't give a single date for the beginning of the habit of drinking tea in India. And next, we can also not give a single date for the British rule in India because they didn't establish their rule in a single date. We might have think about our revolt of 1857 and before that Battle of Plassey, and what before that? Purchase of Bombay or Chennai, that was erstwhile Madras. Yeah, and also when they first got permission from Mughal Emperor Jahangir when Thomas Roy came to India in 1615. So here also we can give a single date after which British established their rule in India. And also about our national movement. Here also we will be thinking about our Indian freedom struggle and our great revolt of 1857, and before that it all began from the Sannyasi movement in the 1760s, and here also we can't give one particular date after which the resistance to the British rule came during the Sannyasi movement. And of course changes that took place in our economy, in our society, that also we read in a previous book about our society. A lot of changes happened, the Indian Renaissance, Reformation. So for all these things, they happened over a particular span of time. That is for a period of 10 years, for 50 years, there is a change. So, we can give a single date, single month or a year. Then why is always history associated with dates? One important reason is our previous historians. They were obsessed with dates. So they wrote history along with the battles and any big events that happened, about rulers and the policies that the rulers brought in. So in particular, historians wrote about the year a king was crowned, the year he got married, then the year he had his first heir, that is the next crown prince, the year a particular war was fought, the year the king died, and the year the next ruler enthroned. So here, for every event, dates were important for the previous historians. And at the same time, you must also know there were debates regarding these dates, regarding rulers or the dates when a particular event happened. For all these things, there were debates, about which we will learn later. But in recent years, historians are concentrating on other issues as well. Issues like how people earn their living, like what job they did, what products they produced, including crops or crafts, and what type of food they ate, then how cities developed, how markets came up. We read about these things in the previous book. Then how kingdoms were formed, and also how ideas spread, like how the Reformation idea spread, and at the same time how cultures and also societies changed in India. We will read more about these aspects in this book also. When history is written, what type of dates will be important? This will depend upon the focus we are having on a particular set of events. As soon as our focus changes, that is when we change our focus from a particular set of events to another particular set of events, then the previous set of dates are no more important. We began to concentrate on another set of dates. For example, historians, especially British historians or British affiliated historians in India, they write about the rule of each Governor-Generals or Viceroys during the British period. So it starts from the first Governor-General Warren Hastings, then Wellesley, Bentinck, Dalhousie, Canning, Lawrence, Lytton, Ripon, Curzon, Harding, Irwin, and ends with the last Viceroy, Lord Mountbatten. So all along during the British India period, we can witness our history will be concentrating on these personalities, these people who were ruling India those times. So their activities, that is what and all they did, then their policies, that is government related schemes, then their achievements. For example, Lord Ripon, he introduced the local self-government in India. So these became more important. So it will be like as though other than the lives of these personalities, these governor-generals or viceroys, nothing else very important. And even our histories during the British period in India will be completely having chapters of the lives of these governor-generals and viceroys. Can't we write history in a different way? Can't we not focus on different people who lived during those period and in our Indian society, different classes, different ways of life were there other than the governor-generals or viceroys? Usually what happens when we write history, it is divided into chapters because to have a coherence, that is an order. There should be a link between the first chapter and second chapter, then the second chapter and third chapter. Otherwise, it won't be interesting and it can't be followed. So during this process, what we do is to give a shape to a story or to a set of events. What we do is we will have a particular focus. So here, what happens to have a order about British Governor-Generals, we give importance to the life of a British Governor-General or Viceroy. So in this process, what happens? The activities or the life of other Indians do not fit here. So what should we do? We definitely need another format to write our history. In this new format, the old dates will no longer have any importance. And there should arise a new set of dates which will have or give more importance to the lives of other people other than the British Governor-Generals or Viceroys. In the year 1817, James Mill, he is an English and basically from Scotland. He was an economist and also a political philosopher. He published a book which was in 3 volumes, and the book was called A History of British India. In that, the history of our country, India, was divided into 3 periods. One was Hindu, then Muslim and British. And after this, many historians started to divide our country's history into this division. That is Hindu, then Muslim history, then British history. That means from our ancient period till the modern period, this is how our history was divided. Why do we divide history into different periods? Because each period has some characteristics. For example, during the ancient period, there will be some characteristics. Something different would have been during that period. Then after that, there will be a difference. After several hundred years, there will be a change. So during this change, we divide the period. So before that, a different significance will be there. Then after that, there will be a change. Then the significance will change. This also shows how we see different periods. For example, how we see the ancient part. Then how we look at the medieval part. So what idea we have about these 2 parts. What James Mill thought was that all the Asian societies, including our Indian society, was lower than that of the European society. That is, we were of lesser civilization, like hardly developed. So what he tries to say is, before the British, that is English, came to India, in a country, Hindu and Muslim dictators, they were ruling our nation. Dictators means who were despots or who were ruling us by force. And he is also saying that during this period, religious intolerance, then caste evil, then superstitious beliefs, they were all dominating our society. James Mill felt if British rules us, then we will be civilized. At the same time, for this what he is saying is European manners, their arts, then their institutions including education or administrative establishments, and also their laws should come to our country India. For that he is saying that British, that is English, should take control of all our territories. So what will happen is there will be enlightenment. That is, there will be some more reasoning and happiness among the people of India. That is what he felt. By this what he means is that our country, India, is not capable of any progress without the help of the British people. So by this what happens is, as though British rule can only bring about progress and good civilization, and before the British ruled us, we were as if in a state of darkness. Nothing happened and we were less progressive, or no progress was there in our country, like that. Can we accept this? Can we say our history was first Hindu, then it was Muslim period? Isn't it like during the medieval period, not only Muslims ruled, even other faith people also ruled our country, and also other faith people also lived together harmoniously. In fact, during the medieval period, when the Muslim rulers were ruling, there were many temples also built by other big rulers, including the Tanjore temple or the Khajuraho temples. So it's like the lives and practices of others doesn't matter. That is how this division of history is insisting. At the same time, even during the ancient period also, not only Hindu rulers were ruling us. There were people from other faith who were there and who were also ruling, and there was progress and development during ancient period also. And slightly apart from the British classification of our Indian history, there came another division, that is ancient, medieval and modern. So even now we can see many books categorize our Indian history into ancient, medieval and modern. And even this has problems because this was borrowed from the Western people. According to them, modern period means there is a growth of science, reasoning, that is asking questions, then democracy, liberty and equality. And they say medieval period is a period where these features like science, reasoning, democracy, liberty and equality doesn't exist. Can we accept this? And we can also say that this modern period in fact represented the arrival of British people because it was borrowed from the Western people. Didn't we have reasoning, science, democracy before the British came here? Even in the medieval period or ancient period we had science. And in fact, during the British rule, there was no equality. We were under them and we didn't have any freedom also. And there was no economic growth or progress in our country. They in fact came to plunder us. They looted us. And this period when the British were ruling us is referred to as colonial period by historians. In this book, you will know why the British came to India and how they conquered, that is, took away our land. And at the same time, how they established their rule. That is how they started ruling us by taking control of the local Nawabs and Rajas. And at the same time, how they controlled our economy, our society. Our society here denotes our practices, our beliefs, our faith, including our religion, everything. And at the same time, how they collected revenue or tax for their own expenses in India. And also how they bought goods for them at very low prices so that they can sell at higher prices somewhere else, or they can put it to their own use for the use of their own people. And also how they produced crops, whichever crops they needed, so that they can export them for profits. And how these activities like taking control of our economy, society, then tax collection, export of goods from our country. So how these activities brought changes in our country. That also you'll see. And next was there were changes in our values and tastes. For this we can see an example. So in this picture you can see Lipton Tea's old advertisement. This was way back in 1922. So that time in this picture you can see Prince Arthur. He was the third son of Queen Victoria, who was ruling England that time. So Prince Arthur was given the title Duke of Connaught. Connaught, I think many people will by now picturize our Connaught Place in Delhi, New Delhi. Yes, that is the name, Connaught. Connaught actually was a province in Ireland. So he was given the title Duke of Connaught. And that is how we got the name of Connaught Place in New Delhi, because of Prince Arthur. Okay, so here you can see Prince Arthur sitting on a horse, and behind him background you can see an Indianized picture. So here one thing what they are trying to say is they are controlling our country India. At the same time they are marketing with this picture. What they are marketing here? Tea. So tea they marketed in India as well as world over. So by saying that they colonized a country that is control a country, as well as by showing their power, they induced new taste to the world. Because I think many people must have been knowing that tea doesn't have an Indian origin. It came from outside. The British brought it in. So this is how they introduced a new taste to our country. Next is the changes they brought to our customs and practices, including our religion, our faith and beliefs, everything. So like this, when a country takes control of another country, and by this political, economical, social and cultural changes happens to the controlled country, this process is called colonization. And India was a colony that time, and it was colonized by the colonial power Britain. To know their mindset during that time, we can have another example. So in this picture, you can see the frontispiece of the first map that was prepared by James Renell. This was way back in 1782. So he was called by the then governor of Bengal, Robert Clive. So he was called to prepare the map of India, because those times the British were able to dominate us because they knew our map, our location. And they also thought that map was very important to control any country. So James Renell, he is coming to India to prepare the map. The frontispiece of this map, the picture depicts that Indians are willingly giving away their ancient texts to Britannia. Britannia is a symbol of British power. So it's saying as if the Indian people are asking Britannia to protect the Indian culture. So here the Latin word of Britain is nothing but Britannia. Like how we say our mother country India as Bharat, Bharat Mata, so they call their motherland Britannia. Even now you must have heard the name Britannia in a country. Yes, it's a biscuit company. So it was once upon a time a British company. And here you can see Britannia is surrounded by soldiers, and there is a plaque behind her. On that plaque, it's written about the control of the British. Then two victories. One was the capturing of Porto Novo. Next is Sholinga. Both are in southern parts of India, in Tamil Nadu. So one is currently known as Parangipettai, which is in Kadlur district of the state of Tamil Nadu, and next is in Sholinga, which is also in Tamil Nadu. So these two places the British conquered that time by a war. So that is what they have mentioned here proudly, that we have took control of their land. And one more thing you can see here is the people who are giving the ancient texts. Here the ancient texts are nothing but our Shastras. So here the Brahmanas are giving the Shastras to Britannia. So the Brahmins, they are bending and giving it to Britannia. Why is it Brahmins are picturized like this? As if they are bending and giving, requesting her to protect our culture and giving away our ancient texts, which is like giving away our culture to them and asking them to take control of our culture and everything. That's the short story for this. James Renell didn't come here during the 1780s alone. Before that, he was in India. That was in the 1760s. That was the time when the actual Indian War of Independence began. So we know it's 1857, but this started way back. The moment the British people started controlling our country, our people resisted their rule. This started in 1760 itself. The first resistance was from the sannyasis. In many books you must have learnt about the sannyasi movement, sannyasi rebellion. Yes, they were the first people to rebel against the British rule. So when James Renell came in the 1760s, what happened was, he was touring Bengal. That time he was a surveyor, land surveyor, surveying land and measuring them. So what happened when he went to Bengal, the protest by the sannyasis was intense. And in one instance, James Renell was attacked by the sannyasis. And even his bodyguards were also attacked. And James Renell was injured that time, especially his shoulder. So he had this anger on our people. So here you can see clearly he showed that anger on our people in this picture. And at the same time, the dominative mind, the typical dominative mind of the British people is also shown in this picture. This is what you have to understand. When we write the history of the last 250 years of our country, what are the sources we use to write the history of this period? We will see about that. One important source is the official records of the British administration. So here all the administrative offices, institutions, their records, that is the records of the officers or the people who worked there, were an important source of the British administrative history. Even the British believed in writing and keeping records. So every instruction, planning, then the government policies, their decisions, agreements, and also department or official wise investigations, these were written and kept. So by this what they believed was it can be studied or debated whenever required. So based on these records, they can use them later. So because of this, a habit of writing memos are nothing but circulars, then notings and reports. So all these came into practice. Even now you can see in many official departments in our country. Not only writing these reports or memos, the British also felt that these documents and even letters must be properly preserved. So for this what they did was they set up or built record rooms in all the administrative institutions during that period. So a village Tahsildar's office, collector office, commissioner office, provincial secretariats. So those days each province had a secretariat. Now we have state secretariat. Then law courts. So there is the official wing of the court. In all these places, record rooms were there. Then in important places, special institutions like archives and museums were also established. So in places like Chennai, Kolkata, and most importantly, our capital, New Delhi, you can see archives and also museums. So this practice was there from early, that is letters and memos were moving around from one branch of an administrative building to another. This started from the early 19th century. And even now we have that habit. And these records that were written during those periods, they were all preserved. Still we can study all those notes and reports that were prepared by the officials in each province. So here in this picture you can see the National Archives of India that was built during the 1920s. And this was the same period our capital, New Delhi, was also built. So that time first the Vice-Regal Palace was built. Now it is called as the Rashtrapati Bhavan, or President's Residence. So our National Museum and National Archives was built close to our Rashtrapati Bhavan. So from this you can see how much importance was given for this archives building and museum. You can also see one example. In 1946, there was a mutiny, a protest against the British government in India on the ships of the British Royal Indian Navy. So this mutiny was by our Indian people. That mutiny was suppressed and a report was prepared by the Home Department based on the information from different dockyards. So let us see what report came from each dockyard. From Bombay, so it said arrangements were made to take over all the ships and establishment by the army, and the Royal Navy ships were remaining outside the harbour. Then report from Karachi read 301 mutineers were under arrest and few more were yet to be arrested, and all the establishment are under the military guard. And from Visakhapatnam it reads that the situation is under control and no violence has occurred. Military guards have been placed on the ships and establishments, and except for a few men refusing to work, there is no other trouble that were expected. So this report was prepared by the Home Department under the name of Director of Intelligence, Headquarters, India Command, Situation Report number 7, file number 52146, Home, Government of India. So from this example you can see how the report making was given importance and how we can read them and know what happened during that period. Apart from record keeping, another major practice during the British period was surveying. Surveying is nothing but collecting detailed information about something. So here what the British people believed was to administer, that is to control a country, they must know entirely about the country. So in the beginning of 19th century, they started to survey our entire country. And this was carried especially in villages, and it began with revenue surveys. So revenue, as you know, when revenue surveys are conducted, it is primarily about knowing about the land. So here about the village and the surrounding area or region. So what they do is they collect information about the topography, that is the contour, whether there is a hill or a plain or river, valley, all those things. Then about the soil quality, then the plants or the flora in that region and the animals or wild animals or fauna in that region. Then the local histories or the history about that particular area, and also the cropping pattern, that is the way in which crops were grown in that region or in those villages. So these facts were all collected by the British people. And by the end of the 19th century, what happened? Census was conducted for every 10 years. So this operation began. Even now you must have seen about census being collected in our country. So this is a practice which began from this period. So in this, details about the number of people in a province, then information about the caste of all the people, then their beliefs, and also the occupation the people did. So these informations were collected. And there were also other surveys like botanical surveys, which is about the plants, then zoological surveys, that is about the animals, then archaeological surveys, then anthropological surveys, which is about human history, then forest surveys. These were all conducted. So here in this picture you can see a custard apple plant, which was drawn in 1770s. The British established botanical gardens like the one in Kottakaman, Bangalore, and also in many places in India. And natural history museums were also established. So here the British collected plant specimens or samples of plants and about their uses, that is good or bad. So these informations were also collected and preserved in these places. And local artists were used to draw the plant samples or specimens. Now historians are looking how these informations were collected, how these plants were collected, and what we can know about the nature of colonization by this act of the British by collecting our plant specimens. So I will give a brief about this, the last part of this video. So from the official records, including the memos, the notings, and also surveys, we can know a lot of things that happened during the British period. At the same time, there are many things which we don't know, from these records especially. Why it is like this? Because from the official records, we can only know what the officials thought, whatever they were interested in. Especially they were interested only in colonial thoughts and colonial interests. So they wished for their own countries, that is England's prosperity, not our country India's prosperity. So whichever concerned them, those things only they will start to record. So from those records we can't or never understand what our people, our Indian people felt and what was behind the actions of our people. For example, in this picture, which is regarding the revolt of 1857, the first Indian freedom struggle revolt. So these type of pictures can be found in almost all the books that were created by the British historians, Western or Western related historians all around the world. So for example, in this picture, what was written under was, the mutinous sepoys share the loot. So can you see in what bad light our sepoys were shown? They were struggling and they were revolting against the British for the freedom of our country. But the British represented our people, our freedom fighters, as greedy, vicious, brutal, or like bad people who were caring only about money. So this is how these colonial minded historians were recording about our people. So to know about our people and what our people felt and what was behind the actions of our people, we must search for other sources, that is other than the official records. So when we start searching to all these sources other than the official records, we find many of such sources. For example, diaries of people. Any individual people would have written diaries. So those records, then accounts of pilgrims or travelers who came from outside, so they must have written records. Then autobiographies of famous people including Mahatma Gandhi, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. Then also in those periods there were many popular booklets which were written and distributed in local bazaars. So these also tell about what happened in our country. As the invention of printing press helped in publications of many newspapers, these newspapers were published and many issues in such newspapers were debated among the public. So for example, in 1946, 22nd March, in Hindustan Times, one article was published. So there it says about the police strike in New Delhi. In that around 2000 policemen participated and they refused to take food from the police line's kitchen because of low salary to them and also the bad quality of the food which was given to them. So one of the strikers, that is one of the policemen, says that the food supplied to them was very bad and it was not fit for human consumption, and even cattle, that is cow, would not eat the chapatis or the dal which were given to them. So these were things or issues that were published during those period that people would debate and discuss. At the same time, many leaders and numerous reformers, social reformers all around our country, they wrote to spread their ideas. Then poets including Rabindranath Tagore and novelists, they wrote to express their feelings to our people. In this chapter, in the beginning, we saw the importance of dates or time and its relationship to history. There were many debates about history and happenings and about kings before independence and also after independence, and it will continue. So one of the example which we can talk is, in this book you must have read about surveys. So one of the surveyor called James Prinsep, he was here in India, a British man during the 19th century. So he was researching about Emperor Ashoka. So that time one of the famous debate was about two names, Devanampiya Piyadasi and Devanampiya Ashoka. So in all minor pillar edicts of Ashoka, usually in pillar edicts, the advice and the command of Ashoka will be written, and in the last his name would be depicted. So in minor pillar edicts, Devanampiya Ashoka was there, and major pillar edicts, Devanampiya Piyadasi was there. So one debate was, are these two same? That is, Devanampiya Piyadasi and Devanampiya Ashoka were the same, was one such debate. In the beginning, it was like Ashoka was a small ruler. It was later found that both Devanampiya Piyadasi and Devanampiya Ashoka were same, and he was a great or a big ruler. At the same time, there was another ruler called Devanampiya Tisa. He was ruling Sri Lanka around that period. In fact, it was after Ashoka's spread of Buddhist belief that it went to Sri Lanka, and in Sri Lanka that time Devanampiya Tisa was ruling. So in the beginning the debate was, are Ashoka or Devanampiya Ashoka and Devanampiya Tisa the same? But it was not. So why I am telling this is, there were debates all along in history about dates, about time, about period, and also about kings which were there and which will continue in future. So one thing we must know about history is, it's all about facts and fact related debates and writing them as histories. So today if there is a fact and a history written, it may be debated in future. So this is what we must know. Then we come to British colonization. So they came to India not to do any service, in fact to rule us and to control us like slaves for the prosperity and betterment of their mother country, England or Britannia. So they tried to control our economy, then they controlled our culture, our beliefs and practices, our society, and for this they followed many tactics. So we must know about all those things, which we will learn in this book. One example, we were talking about botanical gardens. So the British established these type of botanical gardens in many colonial countries. That is the countries which they were controlling, including India, South America, then Southeast Asian countries like Malaysia, etc. For example, rubber or tea are not of Indian origin. So rubber plantation was first established in South America around the Brazil region. So from there, the botanical research took place, and they were analyzing where this plant can be grown, and it was found that it can be grown in a tropical region, and it was shifted via ship to India. And here the plantation was established, and they searched for other colonies also, and they were controlling Malaysia. And this is how the Tamil people from Tamil Nadu were moved as slaves to Malaysia for the British colonial rubber plantation there. So in these botanical gardens and their establishment, the fact-finding team, the surveying, in all these, they were having their own economical calculations for their own good, for their own greedy reasons. So these things also we must know. Then we saw about many sources of knowing history during this period, including the records of officials, then diaries of people, autobiographies, newspapers. And apart from that, we should know that these were written by literate people, that is, people who knew to read and write. What about other people who don't know to read or write, including the Indian origin tribal people and the peasants, the workers in mines or poor people on the streets? So we must know about their lives and what they felt and what they were doing. So for this, we must make an additional effort, and in this book, we will learn about that. Continue to register your comments. Thanks for watching and supporting my channel.